Everyone preps food. Everyone stores water. Almost nobody thinks about drinks. That is the gap that quietly breaks most survival plans apart. Your body needs more than hydration. It needs electrolytes to actually absorb the water you drink. Vitamin C, or it starts breaking down within weeks. Sleep support, digestive protection, morale. Water covers none of that. And when things go wrong, none of that is optional. These 10 drinks are what serious preppers stock alongside their food supply. Most last for years. Several never expire. Each one fills a specific gap that plain water leaves open. The one at number 1 has been used by militaries for over 200 years. Most people have never once thought to stock it. 10 survival drinks that never expire. Let's get into it. Number 10. Powdered flavored drink mix. This is the entry that makes people stop and question the whole list. Kool-Aid, Tang, fruit punch powder. On a serious emergency list. Hold that reaction for a second, because before dismissing it, there are 2 things worth understanding. One about storage. One about what actually happens to people under extended pressure. Storage first. Powdered drink mix, sealed in an airtight container, is essentially indefinitely stable. Sugar and citric acid do not degrade under normal conditions. No organic material capable of spoiling. No fats to go rancid. No moisture to feed mold. A properly sealed container stored today will be fully functional a decade from now. That part is straightforward. The part most people have never thought through is the psychological one. In any extended disruption, water becomes the only beverage available. That sounds manageable. It does not feel manageable when you are actually living it. Plain water. Every meal. Every hour. Every day. For weeks. The monotony of drinking only water stacks on top of the monotony of eating the same stored foods, sleeping poorly, and managing ongoing stress with no clear end in sight. That accumulated monotony is a real threat to how a family holds together under pressure, especially with children. A packet of flavored powder dissolved in water is not nutrition. What it is something more specific than that. It is a signal. It tastes like a normal afternoon. Sweet, colored, intentional. For a child sitting in a difficult situation they cannot fully understand, that cup of something familiar is an anchor. A small but real connection to ordinary life. And that anchor matters more than most survival guides will ever acknowledge. Military field ration designers understood this long before the research formalized it. Flavored drink powder has appeared in field ration kits across multiple armed forces for decades. Not because soldiers need the sugar, because field commanders learned through experience that small sensory anchors sustain morale during long deployments in ways that nutritionists struggle to measure. But experienced officers never underestimate. 20 to 30 packets. Under $10. The morale drink most serious survival lists are too embarrassed to include. And genuinely one of the most human things on this list. Morale covered. Now, the powder that looks almost identical on the shelf but does something completely different inside the body. Number 9. Powdered electrolyte mix. Most people treat water and hydration as the same thing. They are not. And the difference between them is not a minor detail. Water hydrates. Electrolytes rehydrate. That distinction is physiological, and it is the reason this belongs on any serious emergency list. Here is how it works. In the small intestine, water absorption into the bloodstream depends on a transport process that requires both sodium and glucose to be present at the same time. Without them, plain water consumed during active dehydration, from heat, physical labor, illness, or sustained stress, absorbs at a significantly lower rate than water consumed alongside the correct electrolyte balance. The World Health Organization built its entire oral rehydration therapy protocol around this single mechanism, a precise combination of sodium, potassium, glucose, and water. That protocol is credited with saving millions of lives in disaster and disease environments across 5 decades. Not because the minerals replace fluid, because they unlock the body's own absorption process. Without them, drinking more water does not fix the problem. It largely passes through. Powdered electrolyte mix is indefinitely stable when kept dry. The minerals do not degrade. The glucose does not spoil. Airtight storage is the only requirement. In any scenario involving physical exertion, heat exposure, uncertain water quality, or illness, the difference between adequate hydration and dangerous dehydration is not always how much someone drinks. It is often whether their body is actually absorbing what they are drinking. 30 to 50 sachets. Under $20. The hydration tool that most water storage plans never include. Despite being the thing that makes the water storage plan actually work. Electrolyte absorption covered. Now, a drink with a wartime origin story that most people in the preparedness space have never come across. Number 8. Rosehip tea. In the early years of the Second World War, German naval operations cut British supply lines and effectively stopped citrus imports. Fresh oranges, lemons, limes, gone. The British government understood immediately what that meant. Without a consistent vitamin C source, the civilian population was facing a genuine public health crisis. Not in the distant future. Within weeks. Their solution was something already growing in fields and hedgerows across the British countryside. Rosehip. The small red fruit of the wild rose plant. Used medicinally for over 2,000 years. And gram for gram, dried rosehips carry substantially more natural vitamin C than fresh citrus. The government launched a national collection program. Children across the country gathered wild rosehips. They were processed into rosehip syrup and distributed as a government-issued vitamin C supplement for civilians. It was not folk medicine. It was a calculated public health intervention. And it worked. The reason this matters now is that the same situation, no refrigeration, no fresh produce, no citrus, appears in almost every serious modern disruption within days. And most people have no plan for it. Vitamin C deficiency does not arrive suddenly. It builds quietly. Over the first few weeks without adequate intake, fatigue increases. Wounds heal more slowly. The immune system begins struggling with minor infections it would normally handle easily. Left unaddressed, it progresses further. Scurvy was the primary cause of death on long ocean voyages and extended military campaigns throughout history. Not combat. Not the environment. The absence of a vitamin that nobody had stored a reliable source of. Dried rosehip tea bags, sealed in an airtight container, hold meaningful potency for 2 to 3 years at minimum. The flavor fades beyond that. The functional compounds remain biologically active considerably longer. 1 cup. Boiled water and a tea bag that costs a few cents. Vitamin C. Anti-inflammatory polyphenols from the rosehip compounds, and a warm drink. 3 functions from a single bag. 2 to 3 boxes. Under $10. The wartime solution most modern preppers have never once considered stocking. Vitamin C covered. Now a powder that addresses a problem almost nobody in the preparedness space has ever named. Number 7. Powdered lemon juice. There is a failure that shows up reliably in extended disruption scenarios. It is not dehydration. It is not exhaustion. Most people would never predict it. It is appetite suppression. Sustained stress raises cortisol. And cortisol reliably kills hunger signals. In an extended emergency, people frequently just do not feel like eating. The food is right there. The body stops asking for it. And not eating enough compounds every other physical and cognitive problem a person is already managing, in ways that build across days without ever feeling like a single clear crisis. Most survival guides treat the food problem as solved the moment the food is purchased and stored. It is not. Getting adequate calories into a stressed body that does not want food is a daily management challenge. Almost nobody plans for it. Powdered lemon juice dissolved in water before a meal is a documented appetite stimulant. The citric acid and tartness trigger saliva production, increase stomach acid secretion, and activate the digestive system's preparatory responses. The brain reads those signals as food incoming. Hunger returns within minutes. In a scenario where eating enough matters and appetite is consistently suppressed, a glass of lemon water before meals is a real functional intervention with no infrastructure required. Now the storage comparison. Fresh lemons last 2 to 3 weeks under refrigeration. Less without it. Bottled lemon juice lasts 6 to 12 months after opening. Powdered lemon juice sealed airtight maintains full potency for 2 to 4 years and remains usable well beyond that. Beyond appetite, quality powdered lemon contains actual lemon solids, not synthetic citric acid alone. That means real vitamin C content, natural antimicrobial properties, and digestive support from the citric acid itself. There is also a psychological dimension worth naming. Adding lemon powder to stored water transforms it from something consumed out of necessity into something that feels like a choice. That small sense of agency, of selecting a drink rather than just processing a resource, carries genuine value across a sustained disruption, 2 to 3 containers. Under $12. The citrus function that lasts years when fresh citrus disappears within days. Appetite and citrus covered. Now, the powder that weighs almost nothing and carries one of the most complete natural electrolyte profiles available in any form. Number 6. Coconut water powder. Coconut water has a well-earned reputation as one of the most complete natural electrolyte sources available. Potassium, magnesium, sodium, calcium, in mineral ratios that make it genuinely useful for hydration recovery. The problem is that both fresh and canned coconut water carry real storage limitations. Cans are heavy. They take up significant space. They have a defined shelf life that makes large quantity stockpiling impractical. Coconut water powder solves all 3 of those problems at once. It is freeze-dried coconut water reduced to a completely stable dry form. Reconstitute it with any amount of water, and it produces the full electrolyte profile of fresh coconut water. The freeze-drying process preserves the mineral compounds intact. The ratios hold. Sealed in mylar or an equivalent airtight barrier, it stores for 2 to 5 years, significantly longer than canned alternatives at a fraction of the weight and storage space. 1 teaspoon per glass. That is the entire dose. 1 teaspoon delivers the electrolyte content of a full serving of fresh coconut water from a powder that takes up almost no space and weighs almost nothing. For a mobile emergency kit where weight and volume are real constraints, coconut water powder eliminates the trade-off between portability and electrolyte access. For a long-term home stockpile, it outlasts the canned version at a fraction of the shelf space. 2 to 3 sealed bags. Under $20. The electrolyte solution most survival plans never find. If any of this has been useful so far, a quick like genuinely helps more people find it. Either way, let's keep going. Portable electrolytes covered. Now, a drink with a 200-year military history that almost nobody stocks anymore, and a secondary function most people have never heard of. Number 5. Chicory coffee. In the winter of 1863, coffee supply lines to troops on both sides of the American Civil War were repeatedly disrupted. Soldiers from both the Union and Confederate armies turned to roasted chicory root as their primary substitute. Not because anyone preferred it, because it was stable, available, and warm. Because it produced a bitter, roasted drink that filled the same sensory and psychological role that coffee filled in daily life. In the field, in the cold, with everything else uncertain, a hot cup of something familiar mattered more than most military historians have fully accounted for. 80 years later, coffee rationing across occupied Europe during the Second World War pushed chicory to become the default morning beverage for millions of civilians with no access to actual coffee. In France particularly, chicory became so embedded in daily life during those years that it remained a cultural fixture for decades after rationing ended. Roasted chicory sealed airtight holds full flavor for 1 to 2 years. The dried root remains functional well beyond that with reduced intensity. But here is what the military history does not tell you. And it is the more important reason to stock it. Chicory root is dense in inulin, one of the most researched prebiotic dietary fibers in existence. Inulin passes through the upper digestive tract undigested, reaches the colon, and selectively feeds bifidobacterium populations. These are the specific beneficial bacteria associated with immune function support, nutrient absorption efficiency, and digestive stability. A morning cup of chicory is simultaneously a warm, comforting ritual and a targeted daily dose of gut support. And because it contains no caffeine, it can be consumed at any hour without affecting sleep. In a disruption scenario where sleep is already fragile, that matters more than most people would initially expect. 2 to 3 bags. Under $12. The 200-year field drink that doubles as daily gut medicine. Prebiotic support and morning ritual covered. Now, the golden drink with the most unusual science on this list, and a detail buried in the formulation that most people completely miss. Number 4. Powdered turmeric latte mix. Turmeric has been used medicinally for over 3,000 years. In the last 3 decades, Western clinical research has built one of the largest published bodies of evidence on any single plant compound, examining curcumin, turmeric's primary active ingredient, across inflammation, joint function, oxidative stress, digestive health, and cognitive performance under sustained physical stress. By volume of published research, curcumin is one of the most studied plant compounds in existence. But here is the detail almost nobody knows, and it changes the practical value of turmeric completely. Curcumin on its own is poorly absorbed. When consumed without a specific cofactor, the vast majority of it passes through the digestive system without ever entering the bloodstream. Most of the benefit is lost before it can do anything. The cofactor is piperine, the active compound in black pepper. Piperine increases curcumin bioavailability by up to 2,000%. Not a small margin. 2,000%. A turmeric drink without black pepper is delivering a fraction of its potential effect. A quality premixed powdered turmeric latte, already formulated with black pepper, ginger, and a sweetener, has solved that problem before it ever reaches your shelf. In an extended disruption, the body's inflammatory load builds steadily. Sustained physical labor, disrupted sleep, a diet shifted towards sodium-dense, shelf-stable food, chronic low-grade psychological stress. The result is joint pain, slower recovery, and a gradual decline in cognitive clarity that compounds quietly across weeks. A daily cup of turmeric latte is a functional intervention against that accumulation. From a tablespoon of powder in hot water, there is also a dimension that is harder to quantify but genuinely present: warm, slightly sweet, spiced. Something that feels like intentional self-care in the middle of a situation that is anything but. That daily reset signal has real value for people managing sustained stress over a long stretch of time. 2 to 3 containers, under $15. Anti-inflammatory protection covered. Now, the drink that targets the resource most likely to collapse silently in the first 72 hours of any emergency. Number 3. Chamomile tea. Sleep is the first casualty of almost every disruption scenario. It does not always happen the first night, but it almost always happens by the second or third. And once it does, everything else becomes harder. Unfamiliar sounds, changed environments, altered routines, unresolved uncertainty. The nervous system under sustained perceived threat does not disengage easily. It struggles to enter the deep sleep stages where the body actually recovers. And this happens before physical exhaustion is even a significant factor, before hunger, before most of the other disruption stressors have fully arrived. The downstream effects of sustained poor sleep move fast and compound. Within 48 hours, decision-making quality degrades in ways that are clinically measurable. Immune function weakens, which matters in environments where illness risk is already elevated. Emotional regulation becomes harder, which in a confined household under pressure means interpersonal friction that undermines the cooperative functioning a group needs to manage an emergency effectively. Physical recovery from exertion slows. Every task costs more than it should. Chamomile works through a specific and well-documented mechanism. It contains apigenin, a flavonoid that binds to GABA-A receptors in the brain. These are the same receptors targeted by pharmaceutical sedative and anxiolytic medications. Apigenin produces a measurably milder version of the same effect. Multiple randomized controlled trials confirm chamomile's ability to reduce anxiety scores and improve sleep onset. The effect is not pharmaceutical in scale, but it is consistent, safe, and real. In a disruption scenario where pharmaceutical sleep aids may not be available and dependency is a genuine concern, consistent and safe is exactly what matters. 1 cup 30 minutes before sleep. That is all. Chamomile tea bags sealed in an airtight container hold full potency for 2 to 3 years, The flavor fades beyond that. The apigenin remains biologically active considerably longer. 3 to 4 boxes. Under $15. The simplest available intervention for the problem that quietly undermines everything else in an emergency. Sleep and nervous system support covered. Now, a drink with a specific medicinal function that nothing else on this list can replicate, and a storage reality worth knowing before you stock it. Number 2. Canned sparkling water. This one needs an honest caveat before anything else. Canned sparkling water is not indefinitely stable. The water itself does not expire. The carbonation does. Sealed aluminum cans maintain meaningful carbonation for roughly 2 to 3 years before it begins to noticeably diminish. That means canned sparkling water requires active rotation. Buy sealed cases and cycle them within a 2-year window. That is a real management requirement, and it is worth knowing up front. With that said, here is the specific function that puts it on this list above many options that appear more obviously medicinal. Carbonation suppresses nausea. Carbonic acid, the compound responsible for the bubbles, has a documented effect on nausea reduction that is separate from any added flavoring or ingredient. Ginger ale has been the standard recommendation for nausea management for generations. The carbonation is a significant part of why it works, not just the ginger content. Sparkling water without ginger delivers a portion of that same relief through the carbonic acid alone. In any disruption involving uncertain water sources, unfamiliar food combinations, stress-induced digestive issues, or environmental contaminant exposure, gastrointestinal illness is a consistent and predictable risk. Having a first response nausea tool that requires no medication, carries no side effects, and is immediately available from a sealed can is a practical capability most emergency stockpiles simply do not have. There is a second function that is less clinical but equally real in a long disruption. Drinking nothing but flat still water every hour, every day, for weeks, creates a specific sensory fatigue that gradually erodes the willingness to keep drinking enough. Carbonation is a completely different sensory experience. The texture, the sensation. In a long disruption, where water is the only option, that variety maintains hydration consistency in a way that flat water alone does not. 2 to 3 cases. $15 to $25. Rotate within 2 years. Nausea management and sensory variety covered. And now, number 1. The drink that earns the top position not because it scores highest on any single metric, but because it covers more ground simultaneously than anything else on this list. What is the one drink on this list you had never considered before today? Drop it below. Number 1. Powdered milk tea. Not bubble tea mix, not artificial sweet tea powder, not the flavored syrup version. Real powdered milk tea. Quality black tea combined with whole milk powder and a modest amount of sweetener. 3 ingredients. And from those 3 ingredients, one of the most complete single-serving survival drinks that exists in a shelf-stable form. Here is what a properly prepared cup actually delivers. Calories from the milk fat. Complete protein from the milk solids. Calcium and vitamin D. B vitamins including riboflavin and B12, which are among the nutrients most likely to become deficient in a long-term shelf-stable diet. Caffeine from the black tea for cognitive alertness. And theaflavins and the rubigins, the polyphenol compounds unique to black tea, with documented research associations with cardiovascular and immune support. That is a real, meaningful nutritional profile. From 3 dry powders dissolved in a cup of hot water, no cooking, no refrigeration, no preparation beyond boiling water. But the function that puts powdered milk tea at number 1 is not any individual nutrient on that list. It is what happens to the caffeine when it is consumed alongside milk, and it is the reason this combination has held its place as a military field standard for over 2 centuries. Consider the problem with caffeine alone in a disruption scenario. Plain black tea or coffee consumed without food produces a rapid alertness peak, then a hard drop. Blood sugar falls. The alertness window is short. Over a long demanding day, multiple cups become necessary, and each one produces a shorter peak and a harder crash. Sleep disruption accumulates across nights. The net effect over days is negative. The tool designed to sustain performance ends up working against it. Now consume those same milligrams of caffeine with whole milk. The fat and protein in the milk slow gastric emptying. Caffeine absorbs gradually over a longer window rather than in a single spike. The fat provides slow-release caloric energy. The protein activates satiety signaling. The combined result is 2 to 3 hours of stable, sustained cognitive function. No hard crash, no blood sugar drop. The nutritional gap between meals, in terms of both energy and mental clarity, is bridged in a way that no other item on this list can replicate. This is not a new discovery. The British military has served tea with milk to soldiers in field conditions since the 18th century. Records from 19th century British expeditions, polar explorations, and military campaigns across South Asia consistently document tea with milk as the universal field beverage. When nutritional historians examine that pattern, the conclusion is consistent. Field commanders understood empirically, long before modern nutrition science could explain the mechanism, that tea with milk sustained performance more durably than any available alternative. Think about what it actually means to manage a week-long winter power outage. Cold mornings, poor sleep night after night, physical labor for heating and water management, the cognitive weight of handling an abnormal situation with no clear endpoint. A cup of plain black tea in that context gives 30 minutes of alertness and leaves a person cold and mentally flat. A cup of powdered milk tea gives genuine warmth, 2 to 3 hours of stable cognitive function, a real calorie contribution, and the satiety of fat and protein working together. It is not a snack. It is not a meal. It fills the specific nutritional space between those two things, and nothing else on this list does that. 3 to 5 pouches, under $20. Full quality for 12 to 24 months. Functional and safe well beyond that. The most complete single-serving survival drink available. The one with the longest unbroken military field record in modern history. 10 drinks. Everyone stable for years. Everyone covering a specific failure point that plain water leaves unaddressed. Powdered flavored drink mix for morale and psychological stability when monotony starts breaking people down. Electrolyte sachets for actual absorption of the water a person is already drinking. Rosehip tea for vitamin C when fresh produce disappears within days. Powdered lemon juice for appetite restoration and citrus function across years of storage. Coconut water powder for portable complete electrolyte density with almost no weight or space cost. Chicory coffee for gut health and a caffeine-free morning ritual with a 2-century field record behind it. Powdered turmeric latte mix for daily anti-inflammatory protection under sustained physical and psychological stress. Chamomile tea for sleep preservation when everything else is actively disrupting it. Canned sparkling water for nausea management and the sensory variety that keeps people hydrating consistently. And powdered milk tea for sustained cognitive energy, genuine nutrition, and the kind of field-tested reliability that only 200 years of continuous use can produce. Total cost for meaningful quantities of all 10, under $150. The survival plan that stocks only food and water has covered the obvious. It has not covered electrolyte absorption. It has not covered vitamin C. It has not covered sleep. It has not covered nausea. It has not covered appetite suppression. It has not covered the cognitive and nutritional gap between meals. It has not covered morale. These 10 drinks cover all of it. Every one of them available right now. None of them on any mainstream emergency checklist. The blind spot in most serious survival plans is not the food. It is not the water. It is the category that sits between them. The one that delivers every biological and psychological function that food and water alone cannot. Quietly ignored until the moment it is too late to do anything about it. Which one of these are you adding to your stockpile first? Let me know below.